You know, as academics, one of the things we want to do is we want to publish our research. You know, within my discipline, it's probably similar in a lot of others. Usually you present data at a conference first, get some feedback as you're working on the manuscript, and then eventually submit it for publication. So there was a number of conference presentations, both in Canada. One of our colleagues that was involved in the program was out of Europe, so some presentations were also made at some European conferences. Along the way, again, it was a multi-year project. We were making presentations annually at the Sport Canada Research Initiative. The first couple of years were just poster presentations. At the end, we were required to make a full, I think it was about a 40-minute presentation to a group of researchers who, you know, are receiving funding from Sport Canada, representatives from Sport Canada, and all the NSOs from across the country are invited to participate in those as well. All those presentations are video recorded and available on Sport Canada, so they can be viewed by anyone at any time. As a follow-up to that, Sport Canada not only requires you to share the research orally, but also requires you to provide a number of knowledge transfer reports. So those were completed and filed with Sport Canada. They're also available on the Sport Canada website. And then we provided sort of case diagnostics, I suppose, that we then sent back to each of the NSOs that were involved to help them understand how we perceived of their organizational culture based on what we saw. And I don't know if we went so far as prescribing ways of maybe helping draw more sport participants. I think we sort of left it as an invitation that if they wanted to have more of that, we would be welcome to meet with them at any point in time and provide them with some prescriptive ways of trying to address that. Did we have any problems incorporating the qualitative research into it? I think right from the outset when we applied for the funding, and I should clarify that the application went forward before I arrived on the University of Windsor campus, so I was sort of brought in after the fact. But right from the initial grant application, there was a qualitative element built in. I would say the only problem that we really experienced was getting the cooperation of some of the NSOs. Depending on the time of season, it was difficult to get people to participate. So doing site visits and conducting the interviews and even getting the survey responses were very difficult. So we had to be cognizant of, you know, when the seasons were taking place so that we could kind of visit with them during the off season when we had more of an opportunity to meet with those individuals, which is good, but also unfortunate because we may have seen a very different side of them if it were during the season and receive very different kinds of responses when they were in the heat of the moment. But, you know, I suppose you take what you can get. Prior to working on this project, I had known about the value of triangulation using multiple methods. I had done multiple methods, but never in the same study. So I would say one of the things that I took away from this is the value of, you know, taking these multiple lenses in studying a problem. You know, we've all, you know, conducted surveys or just done interviews, and we think we know everything about the problem, but in my opinion, it's only a small fragment of what we could possibly know about a particular phenomenon. And so for me, you know, we got a lot of information from the surveys, but we would never have had the richness of the data. We would never have had the stories and the vignettes and the examples that go along to really bring some of those things to life. And we never would have got some of the contrast either between what we were reading about on the websites and what was actually happening, you know, at the ground level within these organizations. So for me, it really helped to reinforce the need to bring these multiple lenses to a research study. And it's something that I've tried to carry forward with you know, another project that I'm working on right now that has funding through Sport Canada, where we have kind of followed a similar trend, totally different study, totally different context, but the same thing where, you know, we initially started with a survey and then now we're digging into, you know, exploring that particular phenomenon with the sport participants that are living it every day. So the challenge of data management. So again, we had multiple researchers with multiple research assistants that were helping facilitate all of this. We had survey design information, we had survey results that were provided in electronic format. We had, which were then converted into Excel and SPSS for analysis purposes. We had field notes. We didn't go so far as taking pictures because from an ethical standpoint, we thought we might run into problems with that, so we didn't go down that road. But we had all kinds of field notes. We had interview transcripts. We had notes from each of the interviews. Then we had all of our coding. We had a lot of stuff. We had all the website content that we had downloaded offline, so that if it changed over time, we still had it. So we had electronic files, we had hard copies, we had publications that were provided to us when we did our site visits. We had a lot of data, and it was in a lot of different offices at various points in time. And so in terms of managing that data, we had 2 grad students that had helped with the interviews and site visits that sort of took point on managing all the data. So they were responsible for collecting it from all the people involved, kind of categorizing it, filing it. We had, I got one box left. We consolidated it at the end. We shredded any duplications. We scanned a lot of it to put into electronic files. And so, I mean, now, years after, we still have a lot of these data that need to be under lock and key, and because there is some confidential and information there that we need to keep out of the hands of people who could be wandering around the building. So we've got that issue, but then you also have the issue of we have so many stories, so many examples. How do you pick and choose which ones to write about and present about and talk about? And again, we went back to our sampling technique, and we said, okay, well, what were the purposes of choosing these different organizations? And so we sort of took the approach that we were going to try to balance. We were going to try to balance, in one presentation, for example, it was in around the time of the Vancouver Olympics, and we thought, okay, well, let's pick 2 winter sports. We'll pick a large-scale winter sport and sort of a smaller-scale winter sport, and we will present on some of the similarities and differences between those at a conference that had sort of a theme that was tied to it. So when we were presenting our research, we tried to keep some of that stuff in our mind, so that it wasn't dominated by one particular NSO, that we were sharing the voices of many to kind of draw out some of the differences and similarities between them.